If you take someone like Elon Musk, who's really, really smart guy, he put a car on a rocket ship and sent it to outer space, everyone respects that. How is it that we build an education system that leads us into some conceptual nonsense and we don't even know the value of a simple flower or root? You can't know nature. Only a fool will know nature.
Only a fool.
Fool. We don't know. And if we did, we wouldn't be in the crisis we are in now.
Absolutely.
My God, why are we eating such crap? The solution lies in farm to plate. There's no doubt about it.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at what is grown in my region locally, seasonally, what is cultural, and I'm going to start incorporating that.
And that's it. It's your own intelligence, I'll ring my granny and I'll meet this, ask them, reclaim a cultural nutritional heritage.
Most people talk about reconnecting with nature, but he lives it. From a teenager in the UK to a farmer in Tamil Nadu, he's made working with the earth into a movement. And his work at Solitude Farm is not just about growing food, it's about growing culture, community, and consciousness. And when he's not tending to the land, you will find him making his own music. Krishna McKenzie, welcome to Sustainability with Shreya, and I'm so happy to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward.
Me too, and I've obviously heard so much about you, and I've seen all your reels, and I've eaten at Solitude Farm, the most wholesome, nutritious, plant-based food. One of the best meals I've ever had. So I love the work that you do, and I'm so glad I get to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
I want to start off by asking you, the journey from UK to Tamil Nadu, it's quite an unconventional one. How did you get started?
Well, I grew up. My mom, firstly, I was as a toddler, I lived in a very rural area. And I think that there is some sort of memory of that in me, something resonated with that. But then my mom was really into, all different gurus, and so in my house, we had all these Muktananda and Anandamai and this one and that one. And then she took sannyas with Osho. She got the mala from Osho and this and that. And so all of that sort of spiritual influence was there and from a very young age. And then when I was 15, I had the grace to go to J. Krishnamurti school in England, where I studied for 4 years. And at that school, it was just after J. Krishnamurti had died, and the multi-millionaire friend of Krishnamurti paid for our whole school and the school in California to come to India and divide in 4 groups and go and visit the Krishnamurti schools in India. So we were in Rishi Valley, in Madnapalli and Chennai in the school. And it used to be in the Theosophical Society. And we were also in, Rajghat, Banaras, and the Valley School in Bangalore. And at 16 years old, being in India, this is Coca-Cola, when India opened up to free market economy in 92, this is 1990. It was really magical for me, it was so, the realization of how magical it was when I came back to England, and I was like, there's 200 houses on this side of the road and 200 houses on this side. And there's another road and another road and another road and another road and another road. And everyone's watching TV with their doors locked, the same channel. Where's the life? In India, there were chickens and cows and people standing, sitting in tea shops on the street and people talking. And there's the traffic signal, some guy with a bicycle and the guy on the other way, hey, hi, how are you? And stopping and everyone's beep, beep. There was like life. And you felt, I want life. I want to live.
So the overstimulation drew you in.
I think there's that it's not just stimulation, because there's stimulation in London, there's stimulation in the lights, and it's something about life and warmth. There's such a generosity from people here. But anyway, at the Krishnamurti school, the following year, I met a guy who had lived in Auroville in the 70s, and he was the gardener. And I remember him, he slowly showed me, he taught me about what yoga is, not hatha yoga, but what integral yoga was, what karma yoga was, the real essence of what, Krishna was telling Arjuna, and it was very, as a young 17, 18-year-old, that was very powerful moments, and he said to me, I remember him saying to me, like, yoga is about understanding yourself, and going beyond all the conditioning and the confines that we've sort of created in our mind. And he said, like, take fear. What are you afraid of? I said, well, I'm afraid of walking alone at night. He said, well, start doing it and face your fear. And that will be, that is a yoga in the sense of, you're able to like be conscious at that moment. So I started to do that. And then he started to tell me about Auroville. And I was like, I'm going to live in Auroville, the collective peanut harvest and planting trees together and building your own hut and riding horses bareback, So he completely inspired me. So I came here when I was 19 after being at that school for 4 years. And I was, at that time, I was actually discovered my guru, who is a Japanese farmer called Masanobu Fukuoka, who is like a sort of a farmer jnani. And I actually had the chance to meet him about 20 years ago in Vandana Shiva's farm. And he was a short little guy with the indigo kimono and the wooden chapels and the long white beard. And he didn't talk much. He was already 92 then. I mean, now he's passed. But one thing he told us, was that only a fool will understand his relationship with nature.
Only a fool.
A fool. If you take someone like Elon Musk, who's really, really, really smart guy, he put a car on a rocket ship and sent it to outer space. Everyone respects that, that much learning. And I've done 10 PhDs in Harvard and, MIT and IIT, and everyone's like, oh, wow. If we're so proud of our cerebral knowledge, we have to ask, why is there no water left in Chennai? Or Bangalore, or Mumbai, or Hyderabad, or England, Germany, America, Australia? How is it we've compromised, our life? I mean, now I'm already going into my narrative, but this very powerful teacher, Fukuoka, I discovered his book, The One Straw Revolution. Actually, it was in when I was I arrived in Karachi. My stepmother was Iranian, and my plan was to go across land. She said, "You'll be murdered in Isfahan," So I took a flight to Karachi, went all the way up to the near to Afghanistan, and I was exploring a bit there. But very quickly, I had a dream to be in Auroville. I was being pulled here, and one of my stops was Kolhapur, where I think you're
I'm
grown
from
up.
Kolhapur, yeah.
So I remember I was reading Fukuoka's book there in Kolhapur, and it really, Fukuoka was a fascinating guy because he was a scientist. He was a very highly respected microbiologist, and he had like this death experience where he, at the end of this, like a bit like in yogis, some like Ramana Maharishi had a death experience, and from this experience he had this perception that nature's already perfect, and you can't improve upon nature, and there's no meaning in this life. The meaning you give to this life depends on your conditioning, your beliefs, your ideologies, what your parents told you, what society's dictated to you.
Yeah.
Look at this tree, nature has no agenda. She doesn't have an economics. If she drops 500 mangoes and you eat them, the rat eats them, they germinate and become trees, or they, or they just rot on the ground. It's all fine. There is no movement in time with nature. I mean, psychological time. There's no becoming. It is, and in that, it really epitomizes the very essence of Advaitic thought. That I am that. That thou art, and it. There's this immense being. And that's actually the deeper teaching of Fukuoka. His teaching is all in the practical. It's all about growing food in a non-interventional way, and without plowing, without tractors, without machinery, without chemicals. And I think what really touched me, and what happened with me is I came to Auroville and I found a farm where he'd visited, and I was like, wow, Fukuoka visit is amazing, and I started learning there in Annapurna farm, and I was there for about a year or something. And then I was like, okay, I need to do even more, something strong. So I started I started a project. This is way before Sadhana Forest was there. You know, this was in a place called Aranya in Auroville.
Okay.
And so I started a reforestation project with also a small sort of farming bits and stuff. And I built my own house alone and started to learn what pioneering a land from nothing is like. And that really was something that was really calling me. And man, in Auroville, you could do anything. You could be a ballet dancer and study Russian and Sanskrit and have an organic cafe and have a rock band and do farming. You can do anything as long as you have the maturity to manifest it. So I came back in 2003 and I did a sort of Carlos Castaneda thing where you write a list of all the people you ever met and the reasons why you did this and a sort of what we call a recapitulation. So all this stuff coming out. And the top of my list, the reason to be in Auroville was Fukuoka. And this is a true story. You know, the very next day I went to meet a friend of mine and he had this envelope and he said, "Oh, Krishna, I don't want this. You can have it." So I opened the envelope and it said, "You're invited to go and meet Fukuoka."
No way.
I was like, I thought he was dead. You know, I didn't even know he was alive. So, you know, I had no money and this friend gave me the money and another friend, a Vipassana yogi from Garawal, he said, "No, there's no place to stay, but I'm staying in a tent. You can stay with me." And I found myself in Dehradun, in Vandana's place with my guru, you know, and it was so beautiful. It was magic, you know, like it was truly magic. Yeah. And we were there for 5 days with him. And I see that as my sort of diksha, actually. I see that as my sort of initiation. Although there had been quite a number of years before that where I'd really, you know, consecrated myself to the land. So I came back to solitude in 2003 after having met Fukuoka. And I would say from 2003 till now, that is one trajectory. You know, that's the last 20 years has not stopped, you know. And what's happened is we have explored our relationship with where our food comes from. And that's called what Fukuoka calls is do nothing farming or natural farming.
Okay.
And what you start to see over time is, you know, Fukuoka had particular techniques that he used, which were relevant to his geography, his topography, even his geology, because the geology defines the aquifers and defines what soil you have. And it was defined by demographics and various other factors. What is interesting is you started to be able to pierce the words to go, because you're actually living with it. Yeah. You were able to go beyond, you know, to go to the real, what we say in Tamil, the tattvam, no? The philosophy that really lies at the root of it. And that philosophy over the years is what I've seen is that nature's perfect and you can't know nature. Only a fool will know nature, as Fukuoka said, you know, like, you know,
that's beautiful.
Like I said, Elon Musk, you know, everyone's proud of that sort of learning, but at the end of the day, we don't know. And if we did, we wouldn't be in the crisis we are in now.
Absolutely.
And when you start to explore a farm which has been defined by a food forest, that means planting long duration fruit trees, interspersing it with medium duration banana, moringa, papayas, different types of yams, pineapples, tapioca, and then going for the next layer, the 7-month crops, the arbi, the haldi, you know, the soran, the elephant foot yam, and then going for the shorter duration, the brinjals, the tomatoes, and then all the sag, all the kires, the spinaches. And then you start to see, wow, it's only just beginning. Then you have the edible weeds, you know, and then you start to see, well, from each plant, you can use different parts of the plant. You got the seed, you got the leaf, the root, there's a resin, there's a fruit, there's a vegetable, there's even a flower. And you start to see, wow, this is my mother. And she truly loves us. And because of that, we have culture. Because human beings, they have a body.
Yeah.
Without a body, there is no manifestation. So in the Upanishad, they call this Anamaya Kosh.
Annamaya Kosh.
Annamaya Kosh, it's the first sheath of existence. And then you have Pranamaya Kosh, which is the next sheath. It's the energy sheath. Then you have Manamaya Kosh, which is the mind sheath. Now, naturally, from a mind emerges a language. And the language is the vehicle of culture. Through language, I can communicate to you about, the Vedas and Bharatanatyam and all of these beautiful things that are. But without food, no Annamaya Kosh. So without a relationship to where our food comes from, there is no manifestation.
Wow.
And you start to see that, you can look at that conceptually, and it's pretty, I think it's just like, you can watch anything on the YouTube conceptually, but it's actually because of this restaurant, the Farm to Plate Cafe, where we started to see that, we started that because, well, first we had no money. And I said to my wife is from Tiruvannamalai, and I said, look, we'll start a cafe, we'll make some money. People love when you're cooking and the volunteers. Yeah. And so we started the cafe, and then we started to realize that we have so many foods that we can't sell. Like if you take banana stem, it's really good for your kidneys. And you can make a salad, you can make a curry, you can make a sabji, you can make a juice even from it, which we sell in the cafe. We do mint and banana stem juice. It's very yummy. You can't sell it, but if I feed you it, you'll go, wow, yeah, I'll pay for that. Delicious, So we started to see farm to plate is the key. And we started to, use things like in these juices. Check these juices out. So this is something that grows everywhere. This is the hibiscus. So the hibiscus is good for your heart. It's good for your skin. It's good for this, good for that. So we make this juice. And
can I down that?
Try this one. This is really yummy. This is also good. This is with lemongrass. This is nanari and aparijita, the butterfly pea. This is good for your uterus as a woman. It's also good for memory, full of antioxidants, good for stress. It helps you sleep. Knock it back. Yeah, cheers. I'll take turmeric. I love the turmeric and the citrus. Chin chin. There's a shot, solitude shots.
That was delicious. That was so
actually
good.
That wasn't turmeric. That was passion fruit.
That was passion fruit.
Yeah, that is really yummy. This is turmeric. Sorry, this is turmeric, and this is sour sop. This is sour sop, and Vana Tulsi. So Vana Tulsi is an ancient forest tulsi. Very delicious.
It's not the one we have at home. It's not the
tulsi very different, very different, very different. And this is Giloy, Guduchi, Amritam Kodi.
That's a herb?
It's a vine, and it grows everywhere as a weed. And it's considered the nectar of immortality. And if I give you the nectar of immortality, you'll be like, oh, Krishna, thank you so much. Friends for life, I mean, how precious can it be that a plant that's been written about in manuscripts that are over 2,000-3,000 years old in Ayurveda is just a weed in your back garden. But because you don't plow, and you don't use chemicals, and you've moved away from an anthropocentric point of view of what I want to grow, because how much money I'm going to make. And you've moved away from that and rather said, but I really don't know. Mother Nature is at the root of these incredible civilizations that have been born on this planet. And you start to see these are local foods. Try it.
That's delicious.
It's nice, no? They're all
so
beautiful.
Good. These are the only shots I want to be drinking ever. That's what I'm into.
Yeah, they're so special. You see, to unfold the narrative in a really, in a way as such that people can really be, brought into this world of our Bhumi Dev. Food is definitely the best way, but you start to see that these are local foods. You see, as we were mentioning, we might have very virtuous and noble intentions to be vegan, which I actually have a huge respect for, because anything compassionate is desperately needed. But if we don't know where it comes from, and some things are coming from halfway around the world, causing incredible pollution and destruction to climate. If you're looking at love, if you're looking at addressing lifestyle diseases, if you're looking at addressing climate change, if you're looking at addressing the fragmentation that we perceive in our society, which comes about because we no longer have a collective and common cultural identity, if you're looking at, even addressing economic disparity, you have to look at the foundation of our existence. And that one thing that unites me and you as a brother and sister is our need for food. It's our Anamaya Kosh.
Yeah.
It's the foundation, and that's our Bhumidev. This soil. That is in Europe they call her Gaia. In South America she's called Pachimama. In India she has many names. One is Bhumidev, but it's a divinity, and from that divinity grows these plants, and these plants gives us these foods, gives us this nourishment, which is also a medicine that doesn't have a carbon footprint. My God, why are we eating such crap? And how is it that we built an education system that leads us into spiraling off into some conceptual nonsense, and we don't even know the value of a simple flower or root, that grows around us? How is it that we've, created that?
Why is that? Why is that such disconnect between where food comes from and what we eat?
That's the start of that is in the the smallness of the human ego. No, surely in Europe, in England, you can see it. It starts off with the laws of the commons, where they took away the common land for people to graze and to use for woodland and hunting and this, and it became controlled by the king, and then they marginalized people more and more, and that's what's happening in our modern day, marginalizing through corporate mentality, marginalizing through an education system that values to use a computer rather than knowing how to grow a tomato. So there's this marginalization of like our rights, of our relationship with the sacred of nature, and that's happened. You can see it in the all over the world. In the genocide that you see all over the world.
Someone like me who lives in a city, what does it mean for me to eat like local, seasonal, and food that is diverse?
Well, firstly, we have to see, that we've sort of lost a relationship with nature. Let's just accept that, that we don't know, because some people come in, how can you eat that? You can't eat that. Well, just because we don't know that you don't know that you can't eat that doesn't mean you can't eat that.
What does that mean?
I'm saying that people come here and say, how are you eating that food? How do you know that's edible, That just illustrates that people have lost the cultural, nutritional heritage, So first we have to accept that, where we are. And then you start to see that, okay, to practice what we call natural farming or do nothing farming, in my eyes, and of course there can be many different ways of going about it, but in my eyes, a food forest is probably the most, expansive way that we can look at that. So if we started a food forest tomorrow, we start with the fruit trees, and then we go for the medium duration and the this and the that, and you start to see it. So much diversity is there, and so much richness is there, but not everyone is going to become a farmer. And I think that's just fine. Some people are into communications, and some people are doctors and engineers, and there's nothing wrong with that guy who is fascinated by computers. Follow your dharma, follow what's your calling. But we can share a collective cultural, nutritional heritage. We say, well, this earth is both our earth, is our mother, and in this season we eat these foods. Whether you're a king or a beggar, those are the foods that we eat in this bioregion, because that's our relationship to Mother Nature. And I think there's where the learning comes in. Like I speak to a lot of people, and I say, at least in Chennai or in Pondi, on the side of the road, there's a little old lady selling, banana flowers and this, what we call avarampu and ponangani and all of this stuff. And I say to them, just eat one of those foods once a week, or the moringa spinach. Eat once a week. Make that your one meal. And in the fact that you eat that once a week, that will be your sort of start. So I've approached the government actually to look at, serving drumstick spinach once a week in government, in the colleges, in any college.
Okay.
So, because I was giving a speech in a university, and there was this, they had invited professors from England on a climate resilience talk. And then I gave my speech. I said, "Do you like drumstick spinach?" They were like, "Yeah, it's our culture. We know that." I said, "Do you eat it? Does it grow on the campus?" It grows everywhere. The campus is 10,000 students. It grows everywhere. I said, "Amazing. Do you serve it in the canteen?" And they're like, "No." I say, "Well, you're doing a climate change conference. You know that industrialized agriculture is a major contributing factor to climate change, and you're not eating something that A, you like, B, you know how to cook it, and C, you have it in your back garden." So upon this, I went to government. I told them, like, "Why don't we do this project? We have Moringa clubs, and they can have a little nursery. They can plant it once a week. They harvest it, and they cook it, and they give it to the students once a week. That's all." I believe in that is a precursor to change, rather than making it very cerebral. And, it's just like, can we eat this food? Can we discover the beauty of local foods?
So if we use all the land we have right now to feed people, to grow food like this, instead of growing the same crop to feed animals that we then consume, where we end up losing so much, even like calorie inefficiency in that.
System. That's a pretty basic. I mean, you don't have to think that much to get that. That a cow obviously needs this much land, but to grow vegetables, you could grow so much more than you would for growing a cow. Definitely, there's it's obvious. It's
but we're
obvious.
still doing that over and over again. Monoculture, monocropping, all of these things. Just growing corn and soy.
But it's about, where does it come from? Because, if a food comes from very far away, it's polluting the planet. There is a violence in that.
Yeah.
There is a inama violence.
Yeah, it's like they went at it with each other. Where did that come from?
Yeah,
exactly.
The right time,
when you said violence, and we're definitely keeping that sound. I've heard this, and I read this quite recently, that the longer the food is away from the soil, the less nutrients it has.
Of course. I mean, again, it's a pretty basic thing. But we're so busy with our lives and swipe this and that. And the essential in our life, which is the soil and the sacred in nature, that's like, that's just some random little, part of our narrative, or not, mostly, So it's not complicated what's happened here, really. It's really not complicated, but it's a beautiful mystery, when you go to this farm and you see, oh, that grew on its own, and the mango grew on its own, and these edible weeds that we just sped 100 people with grew on their own, and that grew on its own, and this grew on its own, and the guava, and you see, there's so many foods that we're serving people that we didn't actually grow. We couldn't have known that. But it was the fact of us, really holding true to the philosophy of Fukuoka that don't try and know nature,
Yeah. There's this growing trend where people keep using these words such as organic farming and regenerative farming. And I often see these corporations use these terms almost as buzzword. They're co-opting these terms.
Yeah.
When I was at COP, everyone was talking about regenerative farming as if, that's the one-stop solution for all things agriculture. What's your take on regenerative farming?
I mean, let's just go a step back. Organic farming. Organic farming is a con.
It's a con?
Because traditionally, you go and ask your grandma, when you were a child, Granny, was there organic farming? What's she going to tell you?
She probably wouldn't know what
everything was organic.
Yeah.
Everything was organic. Just very, very, very recently, it's become organic farming. And then regenerative farming is a new buzzword. Natural farming, this farming, that farming. At the end of the day, we all have a relationship with Bhumi Dev. And this, as I say, the sacred in nature. And you have to come back to the field and honor those gifts. And we eat good food, breathe good air, have good water, and community emerges and culture emerges from there. So it's, I think that that's all money making. That's all politics. I'm not even interested to go there. I don't even think about it. I just know what I'm doing, returning organic matter back to the soil. When I see that soil with millions of microorganisms, molds, bacteria, insects, earthworms, fungi, and the mycelium, I know this is a divinity. And I know from there, that's why this tastes so amazing. And I know that that taste, that is the medicinal value. You know, this isn't just a farm. This is pharmacy. You know, this is the medicinal value of food.
Yeah. Someone said this, that you either pay the farmer or you pay the pharmacy.
Yeah, right. So you start to. I know that what we're doing, there is no doubt about it, because I've watched it grow, and I stand back and I go, wow. And now I've discovered that you can do this, and you can use this, and you can make this, and you can make soaps from this and rope from this. And I just see that so many things grow in their own, and community has emerged. And now I'm on TV talking about this every week, you know. Something is right there. And all we've done is honor a cultural, nutritional heritage. That's what we've done.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. We haven't used any fancy terms. There's been no manual. There's been, you know, it's anyone can do this. I mean, I don't even have a university degree, you know. I've not been to university, nothing, not done anything like that. I know that if you have love for nature, and love is very much time, how much time you're willing to spend with something. So you have time to be with her, she'll show you. You know, she'll show you most definitely. But you need a culture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I would say language is key to that as well. So, you know, learning Tamil was, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like, without knowing Tamil, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, you know.
And I've heard you speak Tamil, and you're definitely fluent. You're definitely.
I mean, not fluent, but it's okay. It's not too bad.
Native speaker. How do you explain sustainability to someone in Tamil?
Actually, it's beautiful. Like today, I had a group of like uneducated ladies who are, you know, very simple farmers. They probably have an acre or a couple of acres or half acre. And they're growing a bit of rice and a bit of millets and this and that. And I showed them all of this, and I just showed them, you know, I just told them, you know, look at the old days. You used to, you know, walk to the temple, and for 2 days to get there, and then you spend a week or 10 days at the temple festival, and everyone was coming together. And your uncle would bring you a couple of sacks of ragi, and you would give a sack of rice to your auntie. And, you know, everyone was drying peanuts outside the house. Every day people would be pounding the bajra, the pearl millet, and making with the stone. And there was festivals, and you saw there was this sort of resonance in the society that was actually still based on, I mean, you know, I think it has its roots in sort of an animistic sort of, you know, culture where, you know, you worship rocks, and you saw the Devi in the rock, and you saw the god in a tree. You know, it's still there in Hinduism. It's sort of almost very paganist sort of thing. It's very, very beautiful, very beautiful. And then I say to them, you know, now look, you have 2 days for the festival. And people are eating government ration rice because it's cheaper and they want to eat white rice. And now we have diabetes, and we have this, and your kids don't know what these seeds are. And then that sort of, I mean, genocide's a bit of a strong word, but that sort of erosion of cultural knowledge has happened over 30, 40 years.
Wow.
It's so fast, you know. I watched it. I remember working with ladies when I was 19. We were digging ponds, you know, loading onto a tractor and making roads with the clay from the pond. And those ladies knew everything, you know, and this seed and that, and they tell you so many things, but their kids don't know anything.
That's what I mean. This like loss of indigenous knowledge, like this loss of how our ancestors grew up, and the fact that they knew how to live with Mother Nature, but as one, you know, not as like separate entity, not as, you know, having control or dominion over it.
Yes.
Just, you know, being one with it. What have been the biggest lessons that this land has taught you?
The biggest lessons that this land has taught me? I mean, I don't think you could put it just into words, frankly, no. it's not like learning is something to accumulate, and again, there's some finishing line, and, now I know this, it's not like that. It's about being. It showed me about being, about being now, and, being open to this majesty, being open to her. She's there all the time. And there's dimensions to her that we don't perceive. We don't hear her because we're too busy, but she's communicating. And can we resonate with that? So I feel very much in resonance with her. I feel sometimes I hear what she's telling me, not with words, but
as for someone like me who lives in a city, this would be the dream, to have a space of land where I can grow my own food. I would know exactly where my food comes from, maybe even grow it myself. But the fact that we don't have that luxury, how can we do better? How can we make better choices? How do we, with the limited amount of time that we have?
Leave the city. No, you say it's your dream, no?
Yeah.
People fight for their dreams,
Yeah.
People, give their life for a dream, to make something happen.
Yeah.
So if it's really a dream, start today.
I guess I'm going to start coming to workshops tomorrow, and I'm going to learn how to farm.
I mean, you don't have to even come to workshops and learn how to farm. It's more an intention. It's more an intention to say, okay, there's that Angrezi telling me all this stuff, but, hang on, I have a culture, and you go to Kolhapur and go and sit with the old grannies and take your iPhone and record a conversation with them, take some biscuits, some tea and chai. Ask them, Granny, what did you eat in Diwali time when you're a child? When there was monsoon and it was so rainy, what did you eat? And when it was full summer months, what did you eat? And what flowers can you eat in this area? And what and dig back, pull back the thread of a cultural nutritional heritage, and see if you can't take a few of those things and start incorporating them into your life. And when you do, take it as an act of love, I think that's the way forward, And maybe you start growing a couple of things on your balcony, one or two simple things. That's what my students do. And then I see now this student is doing like a few more things. And now this guy, he came to the workshop and he just said, I just came along with my wife and I didn't really want to come. And now he has a little food forest and a little daughter growing up, harvesting the tomatoes. And, it's like, what do we want? How deep are the questions we ask ourselves about life? What is life and who we are and what we are and, why we're living? Where is that I? Who is that I? I think that without that, our lives are very shallow, with whatever concept or term or noble idea we carry around with us. There's where we shine,
Yeah, that's what I mean. I know so many people, they say the retirement dream is to move outside of the city and to have exactly this. But so many people stuck in that rat race with the 9-to-5s. It was more for them like, what can someone in the city do to learn where their food comes from, to eat better, to make better choices for their body? Because as you said, food is medicine. I read that quote outside when I was walking in, that food and medicine, they're not separate.
No, they're not. They're not at all separate. I mean, I guess I just have to start, as I'm saying, take one thing and start eating it, And if that's all you can do, well, good for you that you've started with one thing. But then find two things, and maybe then you find a friend who has a little garden patch, and once a week for an hour you go and join them. And maybe then you find a local farmer and you're able to give him 10,000 rupees and he gives you a couple of bags of ragi every year. Maybe you go and help him with the harvest. Everything's up to us, It's where we choose to, shine our love, I was working with a corporate in Chennai, and they're all into net zero. Their government wants them to be, net zero. So they said, can you make us a farm and a restaurant? I said, forget the restaurant. Just use the canteen that you're already serving your employees with. I'll build the farm first and we'll work with the people in the canteen. So we built them a farm, 5 acres. And in 3 months from zero, we put the fence, the irrigation. From 0 to 3 months, we had 700 kilos of produce, So the people, the workers in that company were eating their own radish and cucumbers, bottle gourd, spinach, spring onion, tomatoes. It was quite beautiful. Chilies, brinjal, bottle gourd, pumpkins. It was really... Can you imagine how they were enjoying their lunches? So what it
finally taste vegetables.
Yeah, that's very inspiring, So you could imagine that if corporates would take on that responsibility, of re-exploring, it's re-landscaping ornamental to edible landscapes, basically. That's what it is, We've done a lot of work on that. It's quite well documented on my website, KrishnaMcKenzie.com. And there's a future there, but we have to want to do it,
Yeah.
So we have to want to do it, but it's obviously going to be a profit for them. And I don't mean only, I don't mean a nutritional profit. It is a nutritional profit. It is a medicinal profit. It is a social and a cultural profit. It is a massive ecological profit, but there's definitely economic profit there for them as well. There's branding, there's all this, and the employees would be well.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, we go to work today. Today is rasam made with tipali and ragi ades. It's amazing, So that is a real potential thing that we've actually demonstrated, So we did it with them. We can do it with anyone,
It's very scalable as well.
It's very scalable, and it's sort of, the corporate then becomes, almost like a social catalyst for change. They're actually working with villagers, and they work with local farmers, and they there's this money sort of making machine, but it's sort of like also making well-being,
Absolutely.
So I see the corporates having an interesting role in that, and I have a proposal that's been thrown out there, and we're just exploring that with them for a major airline where. You go to your booking and your Chennai, Hyderabad, there's no brown bread and cheddar cheese, but there is a ragi cutlet with a rosella chutney and a bit of pickle from this, and a little rice with a gongura or something, and you sort of see, well, the local farmers that airline is working with, they're sourcing it from local farmers, not as some discount cheap but actually telling farmers, please be you. Be your culture, like if you're from Andhra Pradesh, grow rosella, grow the things that grow easily without effort.
Yeah.
Grow the things that don't require chemicals and water, because those are the things we want. We want your culture. So they give, they get all these things, and they have this menu, and you can book your local food, and I'm going here and there. And then when you're on the flight, there's more, there's the onboard flight entertainment, and then, there's a bit of a story, a narrative there, maybe a quiz or something, So we're working on that one. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I'm sure it's going to happen. We're with this. We're in touch with a senior executive in this airline, and it looks very positive.
Yeah.
And but by far the most inspiring way that we could create this change in society, is a midday meal scheme. There's no doubt about it. Midday meal scheme. So you could imagine like a 20-kilometer circle with farms like Solitude around it, and you have a little Tata Ace, a little lorry, pickup truck, and you pick up all the stuff and some drumstick spinach and the banana stem, banana flour, jungly bengan and Kerala and all of these things. And you go back, dump it at the midday meal school, cooking center, and the hibiscus flowers, and you make the food and distribute it to those local kids. What's the takeaway? Obviously, in one generation, lifestyle diseases are gone. So health is the first. Secondly, climate change, because if you had number of them, some guy from IIT is going to give you a statistic, and he's going to say, you've offset this much carbon, because we eat 3 times a day, you eat, and this is every day, But I think the most beautiful takeaway from, this reclaiming of a cultural identity through honoring Mother Nature and her gifts is that, you and me grow up on that, government midday meal scheme. And as we grow up, we have a different opinion in music. You like, hip hop and I like Hindustani classical. Like, what rubbish? You're like, who are you to tell me rubbish? And you're a vegan and I eat meat, and you're like, how dare you eat meat? And you like J. Krishnamurti and I like Sai Baba. Like Krishnamurti was a fool, and you're like, how dare you? People will fight for concepts, beliefs, opinions, ideologies. But you put that moringa kiri between us and we both eat and we go, very nice. Local food is the lowest common denominator. And that's what we take away from a midday meal scheme that's honored a cultural nutritional heritage over a period of years for a generation of kids, is the takeaway is a collective value. And you imagine a society where difference of opinions is normal and healthy. But one thing we all agree on is this is our Mother Earth. And these are the gifts she has for us. And these are what grows in these seasons. And those are the foods that we eat those foods.
Yeah. That's the biggest lesson for me. I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at what is grown in my region locally, seasonally, what is cultural. And I'm going to start incorporating that instead of wanting to have this on that day when it's out of season.
Exactly.
And,
that's
eating mangoes in December. I'm like, no, that's
No, definitely.
How do we get to that?
So there's you answer your own question. That's it. It's your own intelligence, You catch the thing, you're like, well, I'm going to go back and I'll ring my granny and I'll meet this. And there's that little old lady who lives in that village that I pass, and I'll ask them and I'll start to reclaim a cultural nutritional heritage, and I'll define my life according to that, and I'll see where it leads me. It's possible it leads you to start farming,
and that's beautiful.
Or maybe it starts you, maybe it just makes you start a school, and in that school there's also growing food, and part of that school it's important the kids are cooking and eating those foods, or maybe I don't know what you do, whatever, but it'll touch your life. Because it's your mother,
Krishna, so many people would say that eating healthy, eating local, seasonal fruits and veggies, the way they're grown, is so expensive. That might be hard to find, but like eating a burger in McDonald's is cheaper than eating these, fresh, ripe fruits that we get.
Well, I mean, the industrialization of agriculture is aimed at units. It's like Nike, selling Nike. You sell a million Nike and it's reduced to this price. It's still that price times a million, So you sell a shitty, product of this and that, and you sell at cheap price, but it's still in times million, So that's what industrialization is about, efficiency, volume, uniformity. We've moved away from the local autonomy. A village had its own sort of autonomy, its own sustainability. A village is going this to something where no one's a producer anymore. And the producers are corporations, and everyone has to buy it through a coin. Well, of course, then to go back to those things that are natural, while we want to stay in that, disempowering architecture of a very, controlled sort of materialistic capitalist society, of course it's going to be more expensive, But if you choose to come back to the land, and you say to yourself, well, I'll open my back door and I'll take a stick of drumstick spinach and I'll plug it in the ground, it'll just grow on its own. Now, after a couple of months, you can start harvesting those leaves and you can put them in any dish that you have, whether it's a roti, a soup, a curry, whatever you want to do, even if you're a non-veg, whatever, you can use those leaves. And that food is yours, there's no cost to it. You want to create an economic value to it, you could make powder and sell it in capsules. You could do a restaurant, start selling it. You might want to offer it free to people. It's up to you. But its essential value is not economic. Its essential value is nutritional.
Yeah.
And that's what you see in this food forest. You see an incredible nutritional profit. And now that profit, like in Auroville, we have to give 33% of our profit to Auroville. So of course the price is a little up, and then you have to give, you have to GST and you have to pay PFs and this and so many things you have to pay, so your price is a little up. But that's all defined by a society. That's not an intrinsic cost of the food. the food's cost is just, your love, your time with it, So I think that you have to ask those questions, not from the point of view, the assumption that our society is like that and it's going to stay like that. And how do we make that cheap? It's not like that. We have to dissemble this structure where, where food is seen as functional, and see rather how do we create a society where, there's a joy and a love and a happiness to explore that relationship with where the food comes from, and see that that's our collective, that's our bond, that's what we both treasure.
You make food sound like a celebration.
Well, it is.
Food sound like
it is,
healing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, you say celebration. Celebration is, I would say, is the golden key of permaculture. Like we have a lot of concerts here and top musicians, and we have music festivals, 1,500 people, 2 stages, 15 bands, and workshops with local food, and, and a healing tree house and kids space. Of course. I was playing in Blue Frog, and Lucky was there, and some Bollywood directors. Now, I love Lucky, no problem about him, but I didn't want to play for this rich crowd. I wanted to play for my community. So I started this festival called Lively Up Your Earth, and we've done 8 of them now. And it's like the pinnacle of what we do. It's like the cherry on top of the cake of what we do. And everyone comes together because it's such a human need to celebrate and dance and sing and rejoice our existence. And when that's coupled with local food, and education and and a sharing, then you start to build a culture. You start to, not a culture, you start to build a community, a real community that has a sense of belonging. Yeah. So I think that's one of the big learnings that we've had at Solitude over the years, is that celebration is the golden key of this, this road back to nature, this natural farming or permaculture. This permaculture meaning this exploration of man and women with their ecology, with the plants and how they interrelate, and all of that. Hey, Winnie.
Anyone listening to this and working at the intersection of food systems, especially sustainable food systems, and to make them more resilient, what would you like to tell them?
To make what more resilient? The people?
Food systems.
Oh, food systems.
Our climate, our soil, knowing that our soil is being eroded, our soil is deprived of all the top nutrients that it had. But there's so many people working towards creating sustainable food systems.
Well, the first, those people probably already know this, but the most important, I would say the first and the last technique is returning organic matter to the soil. Every branch, every stick, every weed, every blade of grass, all waste plant matter, organic matter, return it back to the soil as mulching, what we call, So there are different techniques, and techniques will change according to, again, topography, geology, various factors, But
composting a part of that?
Composting, I'm not so much into composting, but yeah, composting is also beautiful. Like, I guess if you have food waste, you can compost it. But I think that when you start to see a farm like this, composting is a tiny, tiny drop compared to all the leaves and the weeds and the sticks and the waste banana and the waste papaya and all of that can go back to the land, to see that makes a healthy soil. And that soil is obviously more porous, and it's absorbing water, it's holding nutrition. It's actually, you start to see the life in the soil is the vehicle through which the nutrition is passing through the soil. And that's everything. That soil is Bhumidev, that's her. That is her in it's like a dimension of vibration, all this life vibrating at different, each running its own unique little race, and each joining together and celebrating its each existence. And you can't know that. You can't go to Harvard and say you know that. You can't, whatever you say, you don't know that. But when you really leave that alone then so many plants will start growing. And if you start honoring those plants and using them and see that one grows really well, then probably you start eating its fruit or its leaves, and then it gives a seed. You'll save those seeds. Because you've saved those seeds, starts to grow everywhere. And you start to see there's this reclamation of cultural sort of heritage, nutritional heritage, but not because of any of your effort, rather that you just didn't do anything.
You didn't interfere. You let nature do its job. That's it. You just take a step back and you let nature perform.
Take a step. It doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're not actively involved in this, but that is the underlying sruti of this narrative is that nature knows best, Mama knows best.
Yeah. To anyone listening to this who thinks farming is not sexy, growing your own food is not cool, what do you have to tell them?
I mean, look at me, honey. Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I met these kids from very, very rich college the other day in Chennai, or in Bangalore or something. And I'm like, why are you here? You're here because your parents told you to study. Do you want to study this? Probably not. You're doing that because your dad told you. And why are you saying this? Probably because your neighbor told you that you weren't good enough at this and you're probably better off to do this. But why do you want to do agribusiness? For what? Well, you want to earn money to have a big car? So to do that, if you're doing agribusiness, it means you're going to be selling chemicals to people, and probably actually misguiding people. Is that really what you want to do? So why are you doing this? You can walk north or south. You can walk east, you can walk west. You're free. You can start planting trees. You don't have to live in a city. You can go here. You can explore. You can dig. You can start swimming across the bloody ocean if you want. But make a inner choice for yourself what you want. We are not prisoners, at least here in most generous and lovely India, we have a lot of possibilities to do things. And I think as soon as you start doing something authentic that touches on that relationship with Annamaya Kosha, nature, sustainability, whatever name you want to give, regenerative agriculture, the names are not the thing. People will join you. People will, ask you, can you come and help us? And even if you start only for a week, you'll have schools saying, oh, would you come and teach our kids? Because there's such an erosion of knowledge and capacity. So I would say to people, have courage and just start. Don't go do bloody workshops, not even with me. Just get to a land and plant a papaya, plant a drumstick. Start asking people. Go ask your grandma. They still have the knowledge.
They do. They really do.
And find out what to do. And at least once a week, call your friends and make a poster and put it on Instagram and do selfies and do what you want. But honor that moment. Honor that thing of making this juice, and that you've served that juice, and share with people this value of this is this, I think Instagram is amazing for that,
Yeah, and you seem to be doing such a good job of that.
I mean, just in a very sort of humble and spontaneous way. I mean, we would do a video of showing this and then showing the seeds and saving the seeds, how you'd wash them and dry them, and then how you could plant them, because people don't think about that, They don't see that those seeds are the precursor. We had one fruit now.
Yeah, look at
each one of that is a tree, and each tree would give, there's like at least 50, 60 seeds in there. Each tree would give, how many 30 kilos of fruit, You're like, my God.
And we're here talking about world hunger and malnutrition.
We don't think about it. And this grows without effort. It's a weed.
And we throw 1/3 of the food that we grow. Imagine that.
Yeah, definitely.
To feed 8 billion people on this planet. I really hope, that makes a comeback. Just finding joy in finding ingredients in nature, picking it up ourselves and making things out of it, making food or making beauty products, just like that connection to nature. I hope we find a way back, because I
really think that the midday meal scheme is the hope. It's the hope. You look at Indians, they're smart. They're running the White House, Google, NASA. This is nothing. This is logistics. This is logistics, all growing. You just say to a farmer, stop all that plastic mulch and chemicals. You're free. You just grow gongura and drumstick and plant this food forest and look, and you start allowing for that to happen and honor it and value it and get corporates to re-landscape their ornamental spaces to edible and hospitals and prisons and schools, colleges. If that was like an aim, there would be a revolution.
Absolutely. If we used up all the land that we have right now, that we use for monocultures and monocropping to grow corn and soy, and we use that to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just to grow local, seasonal, cultural food.
But it has to feed people.
It has to feed humans directly.
Because people don't know the value of it anymore. But maybe you give a generation of that and then they would start to know the value of it,
I hope so.
So that's a struggle, because you see, even a place like Auroville, which is very, extraordinary place, extraordinary people, like, projects like Sadhana Forest. I mean, it's phenomenal, what's happened there and many, many other places. But even within this place, this narrative is not rooted.
Yeah.
It's not rooted, People are still having their carrots and their beetroots and their potatoes and their this and their that and we don't, we still have a lot to learn about this subject.
Krishna, my last question to you is, what does sustainability mean to you?
Sustainability means to me, oh man, I'm not very keen on that word. Look, we all have these things. There's nothing sustainable about this. This microphone, that's all taken a lot of industry and pollution. There's nothing sustainable about that, or our cars, or our, I think I have one cloth where I know where the cotton was grown. I know how it was woven. I know where it was dyed. And that cloth is precious to me. So I don't think that word really, it's a bit like your regenerative agriculture, how that puts you off. So it puts me off, that word. I think that, we're in a society that's, that's wounded, we're in a world that's, tragic in many ways. I mean, especially right now with what we see, in the Middle East, it's heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. People of Palestine, so it makes me want to, makes me very sad, and you see the climate change and this and that, and yet we could do something different, it's like we have an inertia, we have a Thomas, and I think that we have to ask very deep questions of ourselves.
Because we have the money, we have the solutions, we have what it takes, we just don't do it.
Yeah, we have to ask very deep questions of ourselves. And I mean, they say I remember in the pretext to the Avadhuta Gita from Dattatreya, it says, it's the grace of God alone that allows a wise man to search for truth, So we have to pray for that grace, that we ask deeper questions of ourselves, And but I truly believe the biggest salvation will be through eating. It's a yoga of eating, and celebrating her bounty, her gift to us.
I love the sound of that, because
this is a cultural redemption. This is the work. This is what we call our work. Actually, organic farming. Forget it. This is called cultural redemption.
Yes, and this is how I want to eat, and not to count my calories, and not to eat food as as something that is functional. I want to celebrate the food that I eat.
Definitely.
I want to be intentional about the food that I eat.
Definitely,
and
you
goes
can.
Into my body. Krishna, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Shreya. Thank you for
having me here and for the work that you do. It's incredible. And I hope a ton of people will be inspired by this, and I wish to start their own little farms in their own way. But at least question where their food comes from and start eating
I think that's the main thing, is where does it come from, Where does it come from? And why don't we know? And can we know? And what do we do to start reclaiming that? There's only 21 meals in a week. So you just can take one portion of one meal, even if that is an act of love in itself, and I think that we should honor ourselves and honor nature,
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you.